We're going through the most important things you need to know to work as a DevOps engineer in a work environment. To kick us off, we'll talk about what is DevOps. So, DevOps is the mesh of the development and the operations team. In the past, there used to be a very clear line drawn between those teams, and they called it a wall in the industry. So, development would be pushing features, and ops would be trying to maintain the systems. If you think about what those teams are looking for, they're directly opposing forces. Development teams are looking to ship features as fast as they can and as many as they can to make the application better. Whereas operations is looking to keep things as static as possible so that they know it's in a safe state and they can prevent breakage by preventing change. The role of a DevOps engineer is to make that line easier to cross. We want to build systems and tooling that allows our developers to push changes in a rapid paced environment while also ensuring that we have testing and security in place. The next thing we're going to discuss is the skills that are required to be a DevOps engineer and the common tools that you'll be using. So I want to add a quick caveat here. This is the first video in my DevOps Bootcamp playlist. I have a card pop up here to the rest of that playlist. I'm going to mention and briefly discuss all of the important skills and tools here, but could never cover all of this in depth in a single video. So that playlist will cover all of these things to the degree that you need to be able to get a job in DevOps. The first thing we're going to talk about here is Git. Git is something that's really important, not only for you to understand, but also to be a teacher. Being in a DevOps role, there tends to be a lot of people on either side of that development or the operations team that are a little less interested in Git, but Git is always your baseline. It is your source of truth. That is where everything is stored and you deploy from there. Implementing what's called GitOps, it's a set of best practices where you deploy directly from your GitHub. So there is no one that can say it works on my machine, it didn't work on yours. Having a strong foundation in Git is important for any role in software engineering, but I think especially in a DevOps role. Next up is Linux. Doesn't need an introduction. Hopefully, you guys are already using it. If you're a developer and you're not already using it, an Ubuntu desktop, get a Mac, get WSL, get something and make Linux your coding environment, please. It's servers that you'll work with and most systems. So having an understanding down to the operating system level is only going to help you. This is really up for whatever you want to learn. I would recommend starting with Python if you don't know any coding languages. It's going to be the easiest for you to get in and get productive. The other big one for DevOps engineers is Golang. That's really heavy on the infrastructure side. And and that's actually what the Terraform providers build off. But this is really just take your pick, go find one that interests you. That's the most important thing, and go learn it. Once you learn one, it's really easy to learn others. Cloud. So this is where things get fun, at least in my opinion. I started on AWS, then got familiar with Azure. Just pick one and get good at it. Once you learn it, it's kind of like a coding language. It just will carry over into the other one and you'll pick it up like nothing. Learning cloud is not going to be a task that has an end for you. Like, it's not like you're going to master the cloud. So take this iteratively. Just get in, start building some instances if you've never done that before. Learn what serverless is, learn about the shared responsibility model, learn about the cost model of cloud, and then go from there and you'll kind of find some projects that are fun for you and start building out that way. Don't take this on as like, I need to learn cloud right now and it has to all be done before I can get a job. Just get comfortable, understand the basics and the foundations. As you start using these other tools, they're all going to rely back on the cloud. So you'll just get more experience with it over time. Once you start getting comfortable with the cloud and kind of know your way around the portal, start using infrastructure as code as early as possible. So the portal in the cloud can be useful for getting a visual representation of what's happening, but IAC is the way to use the cloud if you're going to be doing it, or infrastructure as software. So IAC, or infrastructure as code, main one's going to be Terraform that you use. There's other tools you could consider Ansible in some sense, but not necessarily. And then the other big one's Pulumi. But Terraform, CloudFormation, and Azure's ARM are the three big ones that you'll really see, and Terraform tends to be the winner in most cases. I went very heavy in Terraform, and I'm very happy that I did. It helped me to get such a good grip on the cloud very early on, as well as understanding a lot of these best practices as well as it planted me in between the dev and the ops team so well that I got a really wide scope view and learned so much. I was helping the front end team debug their APIs and why they weren't working on cloud software, and then moving back and calling in the networking team and asking them why our infrastructure wasn't connecting to the central network. Getting in this type of role is going to help you learn so much so quickly, and Terraform's a great way to do it. Another important thing you're going to need to understand is CI/CD. The way that I would learn that, if I can go back, just start using GitHub Actions, go build a linter on your Python code, go set up a build pipeline, go set up a package registry that automatically deploys from GitHub, set up a static web app to deploy from a GitHub action to S3. All of these things are great ways to get an understanding of GitHub Actions. They're not that difficult. It's really just a YAML file, which YAML's very easy to read and understand if you haven't used it. The key here is knowing when you need to use GitHub Actions. If you're manually running these, say, scripts or commands to push your code or build your code, those sorts of things, this is where you want to integrate it into your GitHub action. So if you're building a Docker container, do it locally to make sure it works, but then do it inside of a GitHub action. And that way you know that you're in a consistent environment. Real quickly, this one thing that I learned that has helped me so much, especially in talking about this in interviews, is GitHub Actions is CI/CD is used because we build in a vacuum. So you want a way to make sure that everyone's environment goes into a single source of truth. I don't care if you're building on your computer, my computer, or some other random person's that's using a Mac from the 90s. We want every single code, we want every single build to happen in the exact same replicated environment. So GitHub Actions give us container images that we can run. GitHub Actions allows us to define an image and then other configurations for our build jobs to make sure that we're always building in that vacuum. Every single time we build, it's the exact same thing, no matter who pushed that code. And this allows us to prevent inconsistencies in that build pipeline and therefore reduce our downtime. Next on the list is Ansible. Ansible is a open source package from Red Hat, and it's built on Python. So Ansible allows us to make changes that we'd be doing by SSHing into one machine. We can configure them to SSH into multiple machines at a single time, allowing us to automate change. So if I need to, I'm actually doing it right now on my other laptop, installing patches on multiple servers. So I have about 50 servers that I'm patching right now. And I'm using Ansible to patch all of those servers with the same set of commands in the same order, all at a single time. Ansible is great at making these changes after things have been deployed. The one reason I don't love it is that in an ideal world, we would use things like infrastructure as code combined with, say, Packer, which is another HashiCorp tool, so that we can package everything into our build and then keep everything ephemeral so that it doesn't matter if our infrastructure just gets wiped away. We can just go rebuild it because we have all the code. But Ansible does a lot of great things and it's used all over the industry, so I don't want to take away from it. Docker's up next. So Docker is an open source toolkit that allows you to create container images. So Docker is going to be used all over your job. Containers are most applications are moving towards microservice architectures, which tend to use containers. And the containers are great because it goes back to that build in the CI/CD we were talking about, where we can make things consistent across all environments. So I define that this container needs to run on an Ubuntu image and it needs to have Python installed and Ansible. And then it runs and it always has those things and only those things or whatever I define in them. And we ensure consistency that way. Packaging things as containers allows us to ship them to any other environment and run things extremely easily. Important note here for interviews, you'll probably be asked about the difference between a virtual machine and a container. The thing that they're looking for the answer there is that the answer they're looking for is that a container shares the kernel, whereas a virtual machine has its own kernel. So as I mentioned, containers are amazing because we can split our applications into really small subsections and allow change in isolated areas. But the problem is that, but the problem with that is that now we have hundreds of containers that are running at a single time, and it gets really hard to manage all of that. And that's where Kubernetes comes into play. So is for creating containers, and Kubernetes is for container orchestration, or Kubernetes is the most complex thing on this list by far. An understanding of what it is really all you're going to need to get into a DevOps role. You might get asked some questions about it. If you can get experience with this early on, it'll be great, but it is pretty complex, so it might be difficult to start with. I would recommend learning all of the other things that I mentioned before this before moving into Kubernetes. One mistake I see a lot of junior people doing is learning Kubernetes too early, and it just stunts their growth because they're not really ready for it. They don't have the foundation in place. Being said, Kubernetes is what's known as infrastructure as software. So now, where Terraform is infrastructure as code, we define it as code and then we apply it. Kubernetes being infrastructure as software is where we define our infrastructure as code again, but then we also create this code that allows us to run, and it always checks to make sure it's in sync. So your Terraform, you run your apply, and then you make sure your state matches. Kubernetes, you write your code, and then you make sure your state matches, and then stores the state into a database called etcd. And etcd, you can think about it as Kubernetes using a for loop to check the state of etcd and check the state of the actual infrastructure and always make sure they match. That's why we define it as infrastructure as software, because this is where we can get into self-healing infrastructure. So if I destroy a pod that has my web server, Kubernetes is going to say, there's no pod here. We need one pod because that's what our state says. Create it. And it'll instantly create it for you. If you find this interesting, you can continue on to my DevOps Bootcamp playlist, which I'll link here. And be sure to subscribe to see every time I release a new video to the playlist.